that Joe wrote about where one of the people who was involved in kind of spotting, what was it?
He was the guy who was the hired or the paid, appeared to be paid anyway, when you looked at the story, first responder eyewitness to an alleged Palestinian suicide bombing. It was just the last one in Eilat, down in the south of Israel. And this guy was right there. He was corroborating all of the official story from an eyewitness point of view. And we dug up some more information and found out that he was also involved in what turned out to be essentially faking UFO encounters quite elaborately, actually, in Israel.
What is his name? I'm sorry?
I can't remember off the top of my head right now, but I'll look it up and I'll
That's
get you
bizarre.
later.
So faking UFO encounters and also faking, you're saying, an encounter with...
well, essentially faking Palestinian suicide bombings. Having a part in that.
Well, that sounds like an intelligence operation, does it not, gentlemen?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, I think it does.
So it's all linked.
Probably get an argument from somebody on that.
Yeah, this is one of the things, we've talked about a little recently with Richard. It's just the idea of everything being, when you really look into it, you start seeing these threads that link so many different things, so many bizarre and what are called conspiracy theories in our world across the board. They all, now and again, or more and more, you see the links between them, between people within them.
There are more connections than I would have ever thought. Writing this book and then being in this field has required me to rip away layer after layer of illusion. And every time I get to a new layer, I think, okay, maybe I've got it. And then, another year goes by and I learn some other major thing, and there goes the next layer. And so now I'm at I started out with the point of, I just want to know, is there a UFO reality and possible cover-up? But you can't just stop there, at least I couldn't. And that takes you into this entire netherworld, the black covert world. And what I find, and I think what a lot of us here have found, is that there's an enormous, I don't think most people appreciate how massive and powerful and wealthy this subterranean covert spy world, let's call it, is. There's billions and billions and trillions of dollars, apparently, that have gone missing from our official global economy and have gone, well, where? Good question. We know for sure that there are a huge number in the United States of black ops, that is, covert operations that aren't supposed to exist but do, that appear to have enormous sums of money with no oversight. So fill in the blanks, guys. What does that mean? There are groups that are able to have tremendous leeway in pursuing activities that are in their interests without the rest of us knowing about it. Mm-hmm. That could include all kinds of covert responses to UFOs of a wide range. That could include, things like 9/11. That could include all kinds of covert biological weapons testing or mind control experiments or false flag operations. The thing is, it's difficult to get a handle on it because officially these activities don't exist, but researchers know that they do exist. And so we're up against an enemy, let's call them that. They're an enemy that hasn't officially revealed themselves. It's like they're, like in the movie Predator, the alien who's got he's invisible. So you can't see him. That's like what we're going against. These guys, in a way, they're almost invisible because they don't get any major media attention, and they don't want us to be looking at them. Mm-hmm. But they're very powerful.
Mm-hmm. When I think about the whole UFO phenomenon and what you have uncovered, through your research and in your book, it seems that there are various levels of evidence, let's say, or strengths of evidence for a UFO conspiracy. The strongest, perhaps, being the official documented evidence of U.S. fighter planes chasing objects that they clearly don't know what they are
I would
and
agree.
can't apprehend them. And that's a strong,
Right.
I mean, that's pretty bulletproof right there.
Yeah.
Right? From there you build and you go into more evidence, and it starts to get maybe a little more
speculative, perhaps.
yeah, or
Right.
dubious, or it's hearsay, or it's
Sure.
it's reports of what someone said, an official said, but there's maybe no documented evidence per se. But even if we just keep it at the official level,
Right.
or the strongest level of evidence, basically, and even if we take the least conspiratorial theory that we base on that evidence, that is that there are craft that appear not to be of this world or of human making, let's
Yes.
say, that are visiting and have been for quite some time. Now I wonder why, in that situation, what is the answer to the question of why would the government want to keep that? If that was just where it stopped, if that's all they knew, why would they even want to keep that piece of evidence? And
Why would they want to hide the...
hidden from the public?
discussion?
Why would that have to be secret? If that's all it was, let's just imagine that is all it is. If that's just that's the level to which it has got at this point, where the only thing that the governments of this world know is that there are these craft that visit the planet and that they are of a technology that we don't understand. Why do they want to keep that secret?
Well, that's exactly the question that dominated the field for the first 30 years or so. In other words, there was no recognition in the 1940s and 50s and 60s and 70s that we had acquired hardware from them. Mm-hmm. This was not up for consideration. The question was, the government seems to be hiding what it knows, that there appear to be aliens here on this planet with us, possibly surveilling us or watching us in some way, maybe some limited interaction. So the question was, well, why wouldn't the government just come out with it? We're grown-ups, we can handle it. We're not all going to jump out of buildings. And so the dominant explanation on that level that you often hear is, well, they're afraid of social panic, threat to religious beliefs, and so forth. In fact, I don't think that's why there's secrecy. I do believe it becomes a much more serious proposition if you have hardware that you've acquired than if you don't have hardware. Mm-hmm. And what has come out since the late 1970s, increasingly, is account after account after account of individuals who have claimed to have witnessed either the retrieval of a UFO crash or a dead alien body, in cryogenic storage, for example, at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base, mm-hmm. or any other number of stories directly linking to alien technology. And what I think has happened is that, pretend that you're the president of the United States in 1947, you're Harry Truman, and your top advisor informs you that, well, sir, we've apparently recovered technology that does not appear to have been manufactured by human hands. So now, as the president, you have to decide, what do you do about this information? Do you tell the world? I think the answer is no. And the answer, because we know historically the United States was not willing to share atomic technology with mm-hmm. the world. This was a big issue at the time. It was the United Nations in 1947, in fact, was asking the U.S. to make atomic technology under international control because it was considered too important for any one nation to have. And America's answer was, no, this is the quickest way to give it to the Soviets, and we don't want to do that. So there was no willingness to share atomic technology. I can't imagine why they would want to share something as exotic as alien technology. The best way to keep that to yourself is to keep it secret. And what I believe Harry Truman and his successors did was to gather his top advisors around him and say, figure out what we're going to do here, figure out how we're going to utilize this technology if we can, and by the way, figure out who these other beings are. Do I have anything to worry about? I think that's a logical thing that you would do. And that's not an irresponsible thing. Mm-hmm. The problem is that as time goes on, secrecy has its own momentum mm-hmm. and its own profitability. So what happened, what I believe happened, is that, and this is the crux of the secrecy, to exploit that technology, I think you have to farm it out to private industry, corporate players who have the scientists, they have the R&D personnel, they got the engineers, they can try to replicate this or at least understand it and come up with their own nifty little ideas. And this is like the goose that lays golden eggs for these guys. They have no incentive for sharing their knowledge of this technology with anyone because they're making a mint off of it. That's what I think it comes down to. And increasingly, when in every other aspect of our society, analysts are able to see how corporations and private money has taken over the international political structure. And
that Joe wrote about, where one of the people who was involved in kind of spotting, what was it?
He was the guy who was the hired or the paid, appeared to be paid anyway. When you looked at the story, first responder eyewitness to an alleged Palestinian suicide bombing. It was just bizarre and what are called conspiracy theories in our world across the board. They all, now and again, or more and more, you see the links between them, between people within them. And
there are more connections than I would have ever thought. Writing this book and then being in this field has required me. Well, that sounds like an intelligence operation, does it not, gentlemen?
Yeah,
yes,
I think it does.
So it's all linked.
Probably get an argument from somebody on that.
Yeah, this is one of the things we've talked about a little recently with Richard. It's just the idea of everything being, when you really look into it, you start seeing these threads that link so many different things. The last one in Eilat, down in the south of Israel, and this guy was right there. He was corroborating all of the official story from an eyewitness point of view. And we dug up some more information and found out that he was also involved in what turned out to be essentially faking UFO encounters quite elaborately, actually, in Israel.
What is his name? I'm sorry.
I can't remember off the top of my head right now, but I'll look it up and I'll
That's
get you
bizarre.
later.
So faking UFO encounters and also faking, you're saying, an encounter with...
Well, essentially faking Palestinian suicide bombings. Having a part in that.